I used to live off Fillmore Street for my first
my
place.
first store was Fillmore.
So my very first place
That
I lived in
was
San
amazing.
Francisco was down the street on Bush
Can't
and
you
Steiner.
drink your champagne in front of us? Oh, goody. Because I don't want to be doing
Champagne. And I used to take my children for walks up Fillmore Street, and Betsy Johnson. I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. So high school. I'm dealing with high school. So when she was a little toddler, and then my son came along, they were used to Betsy Johnson, my obsession with Betsy Johnson. And we would walk in, and without fail, every time that I'd be looking through stuff, I'm like, oh, I love Betsy Johnson. And my son would hear Betsy Johnson, and he was little, and he would speak with this little drunken slur, and he would always say, Betsy Johnson, a family company. I'm like, where does he get that from?
The television.
And then
S.C. Johnson. Remember I told you about that before?
And years later, I finally heard it in a commercial. S.C. Johnson, family company. But in his head, it was Betsy Johnson.
That's so cute.
Because of my obsession with Betsy.
It was like, yeah, it's very
to
funny.
this day, and he's been obsessed. He's like, Mom, when are you going to talk to Betsy? When are you going to meet Betsy? I'm like, so they know. So every time without fail, Betsy Johnson, our family company. Such a unique stamp, such a unique voice. I'll see other designers. I'm not going to put anyone down, but they don't speak to me the way you do, because it's more cookie cutter and it's more about trying to appeal to the masses or trying to please people. But what I love of your work, about your work, is that it feels like it's really coming from the inside, like this divine inspiration. Like you'll hear about musicians saying that they feel like they tap onto something greater and they just really have to get the music out. And I did watch you on your show, and I would see you in the car being driven, and you'd be sketching. It's as though it needed to come out of you.
Oh, that was in the script.
But still, I can see that in your personality. So I'm like dying to see how does it come from you?
Oh, it just has
what
to.
inspires
It does.
you?
I'm very, I mean, this dress is 19,
I love that dress.
maybe, let's see, it was before my ex-husband, so that, it's like 1989, 90.
And it's so relevant.
Because my clothes were always simple. And dancing school costumes were a big influence for me. So either simple leotardic, you know, body stretch, or costumey. You know, it's either Cinderella or leotard Lucy. I mean, two things. And then I always liked pretty. My background, little Connecticut flower garden, flowers, I love. Pretty. And then I started in the 60s, and I just liked the rock and roll side, a la the punk side, and it just keeps going around. It really, and especially now, in a very trendless, like, do your own thing.
Exactly.
Do your own thing.
That's funny. One of my favorite designers.
Plenty of stuff out there to pick from.
Yeah, one of my favorite designers now is Millie, but I see that she takes.
Oh, Millie's great.
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of
And Alice
inspiration
and
from
Olivia.
you.
Well, it's like when I look way back, a lot of stuff hadn't been done, but it wasn't revolutionary. It was just clothes that were more girly, more sexy, more sweet, more ruffly.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, they were classics. That my little puff sleeve and the yoke and the full skirt. I mean, that kept us in business in the floral. So it was just kind of, took me about 5 years to see what I was doing, because my first label at Paraphernalia, I got the job. I was with the magazine before, you know. Got the job, and all I had to do was make what I wanted to wear. We had no showroom, we had no collection. We just made stuff and sent it to our Paraphernalia stores, which grew and grew and grew. But no, I've just stuck to what I personally like through thick and thin. I'm happier being creative director of my brands now, because I can hold on to who I am through my brands. If I had to do my own collection now, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm very confused about fashion. I can look at the page. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't relate to. And that's because I relate to my own stuff. And so
but your spirit shines through. That's what I love. Because it's like I feel that people are always trying to fit inside the box, but you burst clear out of the box with your own unique style. And I think it's the passion
little high
shines
school
through.
prom dresses and, I remember in the 60s it was like a t-shirt, a tank top t-shirt, a little t-shirt, and I made my own patterns, and they had a special little flip on the bottom and backseat little flip. So a lot of it in my work is the cut. That it moves with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's functional and it's emotionally good for you.
Yeah. I know about yoga back then, and if the clothes you have in them, you just feel.
And their clothes.
What's true? When I put my dress on this morning, I felt amazing. Like because my body looked great in this dress. And it brought back the memories of like a fun day in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And it's true, your clothes is really relevant in that way. It's more than just something. It's more than just something you keep on your hanger, but something that creates like good memories.
Yeah, it's
with the designer
I've been
stamp
like
on it, which
very
is win-win.
lucky.
Well, you mentioned being creative director now with working with Steve Madden. How are you enjoying that? How has that been different from having your own brand and your
it's
stores?
like night and day. I mean, I love all my teams, people at my licensing categories, right, Kristen? And those are the people I work with, the design teams at dress, at jewelry, at bags, at shoes, at da-da-da-da-da. So it's a more grown-up, realistic experience because they want to make sure they do a good business. And my job is to just kick in the flair, the more of a pure brand approach. And they do with it what they want, but it's a really nice communication. And the real difference between working under a big corporate layout is, with my own stores, my partner and I, 38 years, we worked so hard. And with retail, it was 100% pure. I was not as realistic about the bottom line, and it was more true blue me. That's why I love my vintage.
Yeah.
Like this is vintage.
And I saw your passion when you guys did that vintage, so where you had Betsy through the ages. It was so exciting to see.
I know.
And I know you guys had a call out for people to post their pictures and see if you could borrow pieces.
But you know what I realized? As I have some good pieces that I won't part with, and then I have 30,000, Kirsten. I decided I'd have yard sales. I did 2 weekends with my girls. It was phenomenal. Everything was $20, $40. It was amazing.
Oh my God,
but I have tons left. I thought, oh well, every summer I'll do this massive. Because I'm a pack rat.
And how can we find out about that? I'll fly to New York for that.
I wish I was there. I was afraid to be there at my house.
Crazy.
The girls stayed at the house. They ran the sale. But I figured, well, I'll get rid of it eventually because I'll have a sale every summer.
Right.
Maybe throughout the whole month of August,
Oh, how fun.
You want to go live in my house? Okay, well, you will live in my house for the summer, but you will also run the Betsy Backyard store. But what happened, 2015 is a trippy year for me of bring on the surprise. What happened about 6 months ago is my daughter, husband, and 2 kids decide they're going to move. And I've never lived separately.
Because she's still
from
in the
my
same
daughter.
building.
Oh, no.
I'm in the same building. Not that I'm an overbearing mom, but Lulu's her father and I split when she was born, so it's not like me and Lulu ever had a sense of family outside my brother and sister who are out there in Boston, New Jersey. So And I'm learning from doing Dancing with the Stars, California.
You did a beautiful job on that.
I don't even
down
know if
here
I'm
in Santa Monica
for that.
for 6 weeks. I realized as long as I do my work, my meetings, my web shoots, my whatever, I can be kind of anywhere.
That's wonderful. You get to have the fun thrown in. I followed
Well,
that.
I get to be
Brandon
with the family. We
posted
just
about
found a house. I mean, I've been
Beautiful.
down in Malibu. They had to live in Malibu. 'Cause
I'm friends with Lulu on
family is
Facebook, so I
Malibu.
saw her posting the pictures on her
Really?
Facebook of the
Yeah, they
keys.
just
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, you know, we're
She
moving to
posted
Cali.
the keys. We got the keys the other
Lulu
day.
posted a picture of the keys
Okay.
on Facebook,
Well,
so I saw that.
they're
Yeah.
moving to California in 3 months.
Wow.
I am.
How are
I
you
have a little
handling
guest
that?
house. They're selling their apartment in New York.
Uh-huh.
I'm selling my country house. And what do I do with all that fucking vintage, pardon my French?
I feel like John Gaultier did an amazing exhibit that toured different countries. I
Oh,
feel like
my
there needs to-
vintage is in that caliber, right, Kristen?
There are some
It is.
really great
Some.
pieces.
No, but you're a fashion icon. I fully
You
believe
are.
it belongs in a museum, like the De Young.
Yeah.
Would
That's
you
up
need
the
a-
street
you
from
need
me.
a-
That's a good
And
idea.
there's actually a lot of art
Years.
students and lovers of your style that would appreciate it.
That's a really good idea.
It was in Canada,
I know, that could
Australia.
be-
50
Yeah.
years. She's gonna be
I
I have
50
to
years
figure
this
out
year.
something
Yeah.
amazing.
You need to do it.
That's a really
For
good
my
idea.
50th
And that,
year.
and so save it, store
Whatever
it,
you
do
guys
the
need,
show,
I'll
and
be
then
a
sell
San
it.
Francisco liaison happily.
But the
anything.
thing is, Kristen, like for me, out of 5 years of work at Paraphernalia, which was my favorite work, I didn't save anything. I had 5 styles, and they're
Well,
not
Sure,
even.
you can find them though,
You
like
can.
at vintage
Yeah.
shops.
If you
like
put it out there,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
Women, like I've had
You guys
people,
pulled it
okay,
off for that show.
so-
It was amazing. What
Well,
put
you don't know
together.
what wasn't there. That's why
That's a really
it kind
good
of
idea.
works.
If you want
Yeah.
to email you any details.
Yeah, that would be
But
great.
maybe that's it, Kristen, that I do
You
an
have to.
exhibit
Yes,
party.
please.
Mhm, I'll
No,
do
Because
that.
I don't want
not
to do a
the-
fashion show because I've
No, not
already
a fashion
done
show.
The
this.
museum of that would be
No,
really
they
cool.
had
It
it.
was a wonderful exhibit.
They've done it, and they did it with a jewelry designer. They had all the jewels there too.
Who does
the
that?
DePaul,
What
the
group?
young
She's
yes.
gonna email
Someone has
me
to
all the
do that.
information so we can look into it when we get
For
back.
us.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
young
and
museum
I
here in the
almost
city
feel like
does a
you
lot of
kind of owe
that.
it
That's
to
a
a lot
really,
of
really
people.
good idea.
There's like fashion students who really look up to you, and it would be so meaningful to a lot of people.
Yes.
To exhibit your work in that way. So I think that's
That's
What- that
a
was-
great idea. But, God, I mean, I'd need help trying
yeah.
to locate
We'll put that
pieces.
offline. We had
Yeah.
another.
And you need a backer. You need someone who is connected with the circuit. I know a couple of my silver pieces and 2 suits that the Velvet Underground wore, the velvet suits with all the studs. You need something like that, a show space, museum space.
It can be
One.
done.
It can
Sure,
be
it
done.
can be done.
It can be absolutely done.
We'll work on
Maybe
that.
through
yeah.
FIT or, I don't know.
There's many.
Yeah, we have
many
some
ways to do
we have
it,
some
yeah.
connections here in
So
San
we'll link,
Francisco.
I'll get her
Great.
email and
We'll
we'll.
take that off.
And then you have to help me
Actually-
find amazing vintage. I don't
Oh,
know.
well.
Once we put the word out there that it's happening, I
It'll
think it'll
spread.
come through the woodwork.
Yeah.
Like everyone keeps their vintage Betsey
You
Johnson.
know what it is though, when I advertised for vintage online
Mhm.
or, yeah.
We did it on
Online.
Instagram, yep.
Yeah.
My following is younger,
Mhm.
so the vintage was too fresh,
Too bright.
I need like my punk period of 80s
Mhm.
down to 70s, down to Alley Cat Jr., down to Paraphernalia. So
Yes.
those girls have to be, how old, basically?
Younger,
They have to be 40.
yeah. 'Cause I'm
Yeah, 40s.
way older
Because
than.
otherwise they won't have, I
They
didn't
won't
get
have-
anything online because all, the following is young
Mm-hmm.
and the clothes were just too current. I mean, I have a collection of like 10 or so great bias dresses. So I didn't need the 2000s or the 90s. I needed the prime 80s, 70s, and 60s, and it didn't work. Because the 50-year-olds aren't going online thinking, you know, that's the
I think it's also
I
maybe
have to
key getting with a
capture.
few key vintage stores, because there's a lot of
Yes,
Betsy
San
lovers out there.
Francisco's
Yeah.
great vintage.
Yeah.
Same with LA.
Yeah. So it can be done.
Alrighty.
You mentioned Warhol, so I was going to ask you, is he one of your influences, and who would you say, do you have like a major influence who's influenced you in your art and in your
Oh, I think dancing school, art school, I think all the years just built up. And then for some reason when I got to New York, I just lived around the corner from this Max's Kansas City. I was at the magazine. I was introduced to Paul Young, who was doing paraphernalia. It was just like, but yeah, my favorite zone, and I think my most unthinking, creative zone, but smart zone, because it was like I had a job at Paraphernalia, which was like funding a small stable of designers, mostly imported, Mary Quant, Emmanuel Khan, Paco Rabanne. We imported 3/4 of Paraphernalia stock in our very modern go-go dancing stores, but your clothes had to sell. So I wanted affordable clothes, and it was Twiggy time, and Andy Superstars, Edie Cedric was my fitting model. I mean, it just all kind of like made jello, you know, the ingredients and the da-da-da, it was something you could hold. It was a vibe, a feeling, a purity, a craziness, and the whole world was in that purity, coming off the 50s Eisenhower. So it was a youthquake explosion, the psychedelic drugs, the pantyhose, the landing on the moon. It was a bonkers time. It was my favorite time chunk of fashion because it was closest to my bones. It was what I wanted to wear, purely what I wanted to wear. But the hitch of it, the great thing about it was I made my own patterns, I made my first samples, I went to the little factories, because we'd make 50 of this when we had like 6 or 7 stores, we'd make 100 of something. It was still very far out, but they had to sell.
Yeah.
And so I learned the big bang right away. I was lucky to be able to do what I believed in, but it had to sell. And there was no showroom and no rack of clothes to sell from, which was nice. Because sometimes that's where you get the merchandisers and the money people kind of kicking the life out of it to make it more saleable, but then it never is the real deal.
And that's the hard thing, if they get in your head and you start doubting yourself in the creative process, so finding the balance between
But that's more the real world.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But at least I've always thought I'd rather do what I really want. And if it fails, it fails. But at least I know, at least I'm the failure part of it instead of,
And you're true to yourself
oh,
that way.
that shoe would have been great if you didn't do this to it and you didn't do that to it. You lost me as a customer, but sure you'll gain 10,000 other more conservative girls, but you know, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
the 60s thing was a great learning. I learned what I was about in a way with clothes, and I learned how to work it so it would end up an affordable price. And I liked mass production, even though we were far from mass production with our paraphernalia stores. But Alley Cat was bigger. My junior company in the 70s, little jacquard sweaters, little birds and flowers and all. And then my own company, we built up a good business, and then Steve Madden was always very interested in what I was doing more in the volume area. And we realized when lingerie came to us first in the year 2000.
Oh, interesting.
So my partner and I are realizing licensing is a really great thing because somebody else finances it, somebody else manufactures it, and you give them the design ideas.
Yeah.
Because we'd be like, wow, with retail, it was always a struggle. With licensing, it was just some extra money that we didn't have to lay out money to get it to happen, so.
So I know they need to grab you and take you, so we're gonna ask you very quick. Last.
It's almost time to go. It's 10 to 2.
You know, and I'm confused about this clock.
It says it's almost 3.
Yeah.
I started to.
We have one more.
Yeah.
We have one more interview though after this.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Can we ask you how
narrow down.
How did you stay this amazing throughout the years? I swear, I look at your pictures throughout the years.
I just work
you get
hard
better
and
with
love it.
age.
Yeah, do you have any,
Like, what's your
do you have any
secret?
favorite
I watch my
or-
weight
Mm-hmm.
more than ever. I like to eat light. I just finally got to that place.
Do you meditate in the morning?
No,
or
I don't
any of that
do
stuff?
anything. I try to get to a little dance around with the 50 and up-year-old ladies, but I stepped on some glass, so that took me out of exercise for 3 weeks. Then the other day, I wrenched my rib again from Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know, I want to keep exercising, I think, but these things come up that ruin my exercise program, so I'm very happy, because I hate to exercise. And I love my kids and my family, and now we're going to move, and it's my 50th.
Always an adventure.
Yeah.
Going on.
What else is happening, Kirsten? Did you see the best thing happen for me ever? The best thing, did you see that New York Times
Oh, these two.
front page
This is super.
2 weeks ago?
Not even. Yeah.
Look it up. I'm like,
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
it
Oh,
was,
Brandon posted it on his Facebook. Yeah, I saw that.
I almost fell over. That was, the lady kind of set it up to, right during Fashion Week, when I didn't show, because I just didn't want to show until this 50th thing. And oh my God, it was amazing. And then the next fun thing to happen.
That's a beautiful
I mean, I had
collaboration.
my
Yeah.
reality show, then the dancing show, then the New York Times was like. And then, about 6 months ago, the Kleenex people called and wanted to do a
That
collaboration
is so
with me.
cool.
Not privately, but through the Mad. And look at that.
It's so pretty. Now we don't have to hide our Kleenex boxes.
And you should see them as boxes. They're adorable.
Yeah, I've seen
You know
that.
when I
They're
first saw
great.
you
Really
posted it?
amazing
Yeah,
work.
I saw
It's so
Lulu posted them on her Facebook.
fun.
Do you have
Yeah.
any other collaborations coming
No.
up that are similar?
No, this is kind
We'll
of
have to go
sideline.
into the museum.
Betsey Johnson tabletop
I
would be
don't know
cool.
what-
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
That's the hottest
Are you
thing
kidding?
right now.
Betting, well,
Tabletop. You can do stuff.
And I have stuff for years that would be amazing tabletop. Because I'm a
Yeah, your prints are beautiful.
antiquer, collector, repro, everything I would get in metal or anything, it's a great repro if somebody wants to reproduce.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is the first step. I think betting has been great. To hint at home. And this is like,
No, this is
have you seen them as boxes?
I have. Yeah.
I'm missing the one with the zipper and the leopard. The zippers and the leopard.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
I like this little, because it's all the same
Well,
thing. I mean, that's what I've been
I
looking
could talk to you for ages.
Oh.
I
gotta
have to
go
say,
down.
I-
There's a
yeah.
huge line
All right.
downstairs.
One last
Michelle
question.
and I thank you for.
What advice would you give to like young women to
Put your blinders on and go full speed ahead.
Perfect.
And know you gotta, but just try and keep out the garbage and stay focused on what you wanna do and give it your all. And it'll either work or not.
At least
so
you
you
tried
can
though.
find out
Yeah,
where
exactly.
filming.